Today is Wednesday, October 19th. This is the 2022, October 19th, 2022. It's the Arlington County Board of Equalization hearing. There are 4 cases on the agenda today. The first case is RPC 160050001, the property located at 1501 Langston Boulevard. Mr. Grant Steinhauser is asked to withdraw this case. I assume, Mr. Peralta, there's no objection from the county?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so then I will move to accept the withdrawal. Do I have a second? And a second by Mr. Matskin. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. That case is withdrawn. The second and third have accepted settlements. So the next case on the agenda, do we have Mr. Warren?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry about that.
Perfect. That's all right.
Issues.
No problem. And then, so that RPC is 1800310 at 1310 North Courthouse Road. So Mr. Warren, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about this property, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, board. Thank you, Rob. I'd like to direct the board's attention to page, I guess in the county's memo response, page 170 of 217. And if you're just looking at our package, it's page 3 of 48. Again, this is our summary of facts for this location. It's 1310 North Courthouse Road. It's consistent of 1 tax RPC. It is currently assessed at $126,976,400. The county is recommending no change to the board, and the value we were asking for from the board was a value of $120,474,100. That has been altered slightly based on the back and forth conversations that we've had with the county and the vacancy as of the valuation date. Our revised value, actually I don't have the revised value, but the total we're asking off is $1,911,426, which would be, I can do a quick calculation, 126. Would be a value of $125,064,974, or $125,065,000. I'll make this pretty short and simple here. If you again direct the board's attention to page 3, you'll see the county's income and expense summary and historical summary reporting sheet for the last 3 years. This property has had significant problems with vacancy over the course of the last 3 years. In 2019, there was 92,452 square feet of vacant space, 25% vacancy, and it has continued to downtrend from there. In 2020, there was 187,320 square feet of vacant space, and now most recently 148,000 square feet of vacant space. The gross potential income, you'll see, has been downtrending significantly due to the vacancy each of the last 3 years. 13.9 million in 2019, 10.1 million in 2020, and then most recently 7.9 million. The revision value that we're asking for today, and you can see the county's test column. One of the differences here compared to our original pro forma is with regard to a GSA lease that was signed on the 3rd floor for 28,961 square feet. That was in the end of 2021. Now, it wasn't on the rent roll that we had provided because that lease has not commenced. We've been informed that GSA has not been given authorization to commence through with that list and the fit out. So right now it sits in a shell state. So if you look at the county's test column on page 5, you'll see that they're assuming 177,107 of vacant space in their pro forma for gross potential income at $40 a square foot. but then are not including that in their rent loss, TI, and leasing commissions assumptions below the line. The $1,911,000 essentially that we're asking for is 2 years worth of rent. So again, if the soonest that GSA would be able to commence their lease at this space, if they were given the go-ahead today to commence the fit-out, would be early 2025. So for at least the foreseeable over 2+ years, this property is not going to receive rent on that space. So we're acknowledging that in the DFL and asking the county and the board's consideration for this space and the lost rent for that lease. That lease signed substantially lower than the vacant space of the vacant assumption for rental rate of $40 a square foot. It's signed for $33 a square foot. So we're not asking for a revision of the $40 a square foot that the county is asking for above the line, but the consideration for the lost rent, again, acknowledging that this property will not receive any rent for this property until the very earliest of 2025. That's all I have for today, and happy to field any questions the board has. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Peralta for the county, please.
Yes, thank you. As Mr. Warren stated, the property, as of the first of the year, submitted a rent roll that did not include the new tenant of the GSA lease. Initially, we found that 177,107 square feet is vacant as on the property. After the review, we determined that the GSA lease was signed, as well as other tenants in the building that comprise about 31,335 square feet leased in 2022 at an asking rate of $44.4650 per square foot. Now, considering all that information, we did not include that in the excess vacancy below the line as far as excess vacancy. In other properties that we've seen this year, when a tenant is vacating, complete opposite of what we're seeing here, we would include that tenant as, we would look at the property as of the first of the year to include that tenant still in the space, but we would deduct that below, we would add that back below the line to give them excess vacancy, because we know that in the future they would be vacating the property. Again, this subject property is the complete opposite of that. We would state the vacancy as of the first of the year, as we did. We would include or exclude that with the vacancy below the line to show that this space is leased. It's no longer being advertised to be rented at all. What we didn't exclude is that 33,000 or so square feet that we saw on CoStar. It's attached to the case, showing what leases those were. And we asked the board to consider the original assessment of $125,307,700, which isn't too far off from what the new revised value, if I understand correctly, is $125,065,000. That's all I have. Thank you.
Very frozen? Yes. Yes.
Hey, Blake, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, let me go ahead and ask a couple questions. I think Mary got frozen out.
Yeah, okay, here I'm back. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened there. I was like, I couldn't talk. Okay, thank you. Mr. Lawson, go ahead.
Thanks. Blake, what is excess land?
So, and I should have just clarified that. I just realized. So in our initial appeal package, this included another parcel that had a vacant land parcel on it. So when I read that off our summary of facts, the 126,976,400, it was including that parcel. That parcel has already been completed in our final review. So I should not have. I misspoke there, and I apologize. I was deducting the land value parcel plus the main parcel here from that $1.9 million figure for the lost rent. What I should have stated, it should be the 125, which is just for this main parcel, the 125,307,700. That's just specific for this parcel minus the
On the GSA lease, you say that's contingent upon what funding or?
federal. They have not received the federal approval like for the funding yet. They don't know when that's coming in, if it's going to come in, because a lot of the GSA approval process has kind of been stalled and delayed at this time. They don't know when it could be approved, or you know, in the future if it's going to commence. Mm-hmm.
If it's not approved, will the lease become null and void?
That was my assumption. Now we do include we have the full lease document in here. We just got this fairly recently last week. I have not had a chance, and it's a large document, to peruse the entire thing. So I don't know. I'm guessing it explicitly states in there. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
What would happen if they didn't approve funding?
Okay, I'm good.
All right, other questions, Mr. Matskin?
Just to respond, Barnes, I don't know this lease, but generally speaking, leases in the federal government and contracts in the federal government are contingent upon appropriations.
Right.
And I bet that they could get out.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
Because they, it's a three-party thing,
Right.
Executive branch, legislative branch, and the landlord or the supplier. Okay. Question for the appellant. I had never heard of, I assume this was always owner occupied. I never heard of any space being available there before. I looked on CoStar the other day, there's no spaces available. Clearly, I am lacking something. So through what venue does this landlord make it public that they have space available for third-party lease? Do you know?
I do believe they're actively marketing the property for lease. Now there was a renovation done on floors 8 and 9, which contributed to some of the vacancy there. Now that has been finished. It's in according to the owner, he believes that the true kind of market rent for the building would be $34 to $36 a square foot, with the exception of floor 8 and 9 because of that renovation, and they're asking anywhere from $40 to $41 a square foot for that. But the rest of the building is still of older quality, older build. But to my knowledge, they've been trying to actively lease the space.
Okay, I just wanted to hear you say that. My follow-up question is, your initial statement, they have $1.9 million plus on top of something to come up to 125 million plus.
Yeah.
And
so,
you had, what is it on top of? I mean, you were asking 118, almost less than 119. So where does the 125 come from that you're now suggesting is the right amount?
I should have I misspoke on that because I was including the second land parcel that is not under this appeal anymore. That was resolved. So it should be, and it's listed on the front page, the 125,307,700 minus the 1.9 million, 1911426 for the rent. That's basically just $33 a square foot, which is the rate this lease was signed at, of the 28,961 square feet for the 2 years. And that's just deducting from the 125,307,700 would get you 123,396,300.
Okay.
So I apologize for initially included in the land parcel that's no longer under this review or appeal.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Yates?
The appellant, you had mentioned that in your presentation, the space for GSA is currently in shell space.
Correct.
Oh, to what degree? I mean, is it gutted space? What do you got?
They've just got our correspondence with the owner says that it's in a demoed state currently right now.
The reason I was asking is the $70. What I was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Hoffman? Mhm.
So just, Rob, in your test, column F, the 28,000 square feet is being captured in the office income side. Is that correct?
The 28,000 is included in the 177,107 as vacant.
Okay, so you got it as vacant, and then below the line, the excess vacancies getting the $70 a foot and the $40, all that.
Correct. Well, no, incorrect.
Not for the.
It's removed below the line in excess vacancy.
So you only get 54,000 below the line square foot for excess vacancy, and then but you've got a $3.8 million vacancy credit of 25% above that line, right? Is that how that math works now?
Yes, and if I remember correctly, Mr. Warren had stated that as of the first, or in their renewed valuation, the estimated vacancy was similar to what I have at 148,000.
Okay.
Okay, any final questions? No? Okay, Mr. Peralta, if you take a minute to wrap up, please.
Yes. Even if we were not to include, or even if we were to include this GSA lease below the line, as I stated in my opening, on page 11 of 217, you see the leases that were signed for this property, August 2022 for $16,786 at $44 a square feet, June 22 for $10,298 at $46.50 per square foot, and another lease on the 8th floor, June 2022, $4,251. So that lease, when compared to these new leases, we have a surplus of 2,374 square feet that we're crediting the property in the test column. I think that would negate, any thoughts about crediting GSA towards the subject. The new sublease rent, again, in suites 100, there's subleased square footage on the first and second floor of 19,706 square feet, and again on the second floor of 7,500 square feet, for a total of 27,206 square feet. And again, that is also included in the 147,000 square feet I credited for the property.
Okay,
Thank
you. Mr. Warren, if you take a minute to wrap up, sir.
So just in response to the new leases, there were 2 new leases that were signed on the 8th floor, that renovated space, that were at $40 to $42 a square foot. However, there's every other new lease that's being signed there. There's the McLean Bible Church, which is on the first floor at 16,171 square feet. They signed a lease at $33.50. GSA, they signed that lease on the 3rd floor for the 28,000 square feet at $33 a square foot. So again, it kind of goes to the point that the owner was making, that only the renovated spaces on that floor 8 and 9 are demanding that kind of rent. Again, they have no confirmation when or if the GSA will receive approval for the federal funding for that space. And right now it sits as vacant. The lease has not commenced. And again, the very earliest we were told that if they were to get a approval as of today, that rent or that lease would commence would be the early portion of 2025.
Okay, thank you both.
Thanks.
Okay, it's just among the board members. Where's everybody on this? Mr. Hoffman.
I mean, one thing I can see is some of those buildings over there have really nice views from the 8th, 9th floors, but not so nice from the lower floors. So I can see why there's a difference in the rate. If the GSA is paying $32.68 a square foot, I don't know that you can say the rest of the building is worth $40 a square foot.
Okay.
So I mean, I haven't done the math yet, but I would look at that vacant space, the rate on the vacant space.
Okay, why don't you work on the math? And Mr. Matskin, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, 2 points. One is that we've heard a couple of times from the department what the 2022 leasing activity was, good for the landlord, but that's not within our purview. That just doesn't matter at all. And also the department had mentioned that when the opposite case, when tenants have announced after the date of valuation they're going to leave, we get that space below the line. I know that we've been in many, many conversations saying it's not over till it's over, it's not done till it's done. It's hearsay. We did have a case, I think last week, the week before, where actually the paperwork was signed in advance. That was different versus an announcement. So I'm not taking either of those seriously. Or not seriously, I'm not including that in my conclusions, is a better and more accurate way to say it. I think the 120, based on the history of this building, the $123 million figure seems high, but the appellant makes a case for that, and I would tend to agree with that number and not the higher original number. That's what I have.
Okay, other folks?
Come on, speak up.
Mr. Lawson?
Yeah, I think a modest reduction is in order. I was waiting for Craig.
Yeah.
You're going to come up with 89 million.
Yeah, pretty close actually. I got at $37, I'm at 119,863,889.
Was that TI? What's
What's that?
the TI?
Did you change the $70 figure?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I got that right.
Machines matter in TIs. You never know who's going to want what.
Especially,
Seems like it always comes in higher, Ken.
always.
Always, yeah.
Especially the last couple of years.
Yeah. The small tenants I've done, it's always higher.
Well, at least maybe the 9, which is.
Hey, Ken. My daughter Catherine's not doing GSA.
Come up with something to say.
Just checking out the numbers. Nothing really.
just to see what it did, I changed the TI, I changed the TI from 70 to $90 and took it up to 4854. So that added about $1 million, a little over $1 million in the low line.
Try that.
Yeah,
So come up pretty much the same as D.
yeah. And if I do it on
I personally would favor to take that GSA lease off the active rent rolls. It's not a done deal. It just isn't.
they have an out, and they're not going to even be live till 25.
If it helps the board, I can share the screen of my test and input anything that you guys want. I think he's using $37 a square foot and $90 for TI.
I'm trying to do 38, but my calculator
I can plug it in and share the screen.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
If I'm on Zoom, I'm using Excel for this, but I'm trying to use an old school calculator right now.
You're using $38 a square foot and $90 TI,
Yeah, for the 38 for the vacant space.
and then 177,107 for the
Yes.
vacant.
Yeah, I like
Okay.
the business column.
I think you're worried it's a letter of intent.
Yeah.
I have 121,925,400.
That's it.
Just that $2 change.
Okay.
So is that what you're proposing, Mr.
Yep.
Hoffman? So 121,925,400?
Yeah, just by changing the vacant office rate to $38.
Above the line or below, or both?
And you changed the TI to $90?
No,
You want,
only one.
yeah.
I just ran the number.
Oh, I didn't know if you did that or not.
What do you think about the TI?
I would leave it.
Okay, wait, let's just clarify first. So he changed the vacant office space to $38 a square foot and changed the TI to 90?
No, I didn't change the TI. I just wanted to.
No, but did Rob?
I did.
Okay,
He
take
did,
the TI
so-
back to where it was.
Oh, he did, wow.
So it's 123,583, 200.
That's the number I want.
Yeah,
Okay, so 123,583, 200, and that's not changing the TI, it's just changing the vacant office space to $38 a square foot, correct? Okay,
And increasing the estimated vacancy to 177,107.
and that's what you wanted, right, Mr. Hoffman?
Yes, yes. Thank you for the
that-
calculations.
Thank you.
Okay.
No problem.
If you can remove your, okay. Shared screen so I can see my board again. There we go. Okay, so how is everybody on that?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay, all right, Mr. Hoffman, do you want to make a motion then? I just didn't,
I'm gonna motion to reduce to 123,583,200 based on the rate, reducing the rate for vacant space to $38 over the 177,107 square feet.
wait a minute, sorry, I'm still writing. For 177,107 square feet. Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
No second.
Mr. Metzgen. Okay, motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Greg, or I'm sorry, Mark, are you an aye?
It was an aye, yes.
Okay, then it is unanimous. It's assessment is reduced to 123,538,200, and that is based on adjusting the vacant square space to $38 a square foot for 177,107 square feet. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is RPC 3201903A at 1301 South Scott Street. Mr. Warren has asked to withdraw that case. I assume, Mr. Chikas, there's no objection?
No, ma'am, there's not.
Okay, then I will move to accept the withdrawal. Do I have a second? Mr. Hoffman is a second. All in favor of the withdrawal? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that case has been withdrawn. And the final case on the agenda, we have Mr. Chikas and Mr. Warren. This is for RPC 15007-058 at 2000 North Adams Street. Mr. Warren, you can start with your eight minutes and tell us about this property, sir.
Thank you very much. I'll start on page 38 of 119, which is our summary of facts. Again, this is the Park Adams apartment complex located at 2000 North Adams Street, one tax RPC. It is originally assessed at $51,519,000. The county is recommending a revision of $47,759,600. This is an older property, originally built in 1960, 200 units, a mid-rise apartment building, one building and 6 stories. If I redirect the board again to page 3, the county's apartment income and expense summary, you'll see the prior 4 years of income and expense reporting, along with the county's original and revised assessments. The original assessment represented roughly a 2.2% increase from the prior year. However, the actual NOI year over year from 20 to 2021 decreased 21%, as you can see it below in column E. The gross potential rent and gross potential income, you can see, have been experiencing a 3-year downward trend. And in the county's revised test column, you'll still see that for the total apartment gross potential apartment rent, they're still approximately $350,000 higher than what the county was able to generate in 2021. And the gross potential income, again, is roughly $350,000 higher than what was reported. Similar to other properties that we've discussed, as in yesterday's case, concessions have been on the rise following COVID to, again, keep vacancy down. $3,000 reported in rental concessions in 2019. They jumped to $31,000 in 2020, and then most recently $154,000 in 2021, with a vacancy of 4.25% reported in 2021. The effective gross income year over year for the prior 3 years has been on the decline. The county's revised test column at again $4.6 million is approximately $300,000 above what this property was able to achieve in 2021. The operating expenses for this property the last 5 years have been 36.6% in 2018, 38.5% in 2019, 36.27% in 2020, and then most recently 45% in 2021. The county's revision they did make an upward revision to their operating expense ratio. However, it's still approximately $110,000 below what this property actually reported in operating expenses most recently in 2021. Similarly, NOI has been on the decline the last 3 years, $3 million in 2018, $2.9 million in 2019, $3 million, a slight increase in 2020 to $2.99 million, and then down $2.362 million in 2021. The county's revised NOI that they're calculating for their revision, again, is approximately 300 or actually it's quite a bit higher, almost $400,000 above what this property was able to generate in NOI. So again, we're asking for consideration for what this property was able to generate most recently in 2021 in the 2022 assessment. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Chikas for the county, please.
Good morning, board members. Good morning, Blake. Again, fairly well summarized by Mr. Warren. you know, this property is very similar to other ones we've looked at previously. Again, I think we just look at it a little bit differently as far as the appellants in the county. We're looking at this as a stabilized value, again, incorporating all years. As we talked about consistently, when the 2021 numbers come in, we tend to place more weight on that and less on 2018, but we're still looking at a 4-year operating history. When we do, especially looking at, again, years 18 through 20, I see a very steady property. GPI was essentially on point 3 years in a row. Changing within just about 1% of each other from 18 to 19, 19 to 20. Effective gross, again, within about 1% of each other, even with the increase in 19, and again, about a 1% decrease in 20, but again, within 1% of 2018's number. Same thing with the operating expenses. This led to a stabilized net operating income from years 18 through 2020. Again, as we've seen fairly consistently this year, there were some ripples in occupancy. The natural tendency for ownership is to lower rents and increase concessions. It's literally what we saw at this property. Rents went down, concessions went up, and by quite a bit. You can see concessions 18, 19, and 20 were less than 1%. In fact, just over 0.5% in 2020. They grew to over 3% in 2021. As we've said consistently, and I believe the board has accepted, concessions tend to burn off. They're temporary measures, free rent, free amenity, free parking, etc. That's designed to increase occupancy. As we pointed out in the comments below, you can see that worked. Occupancy grew to 96%, fairly modest 25 basis points, but still, that's what they were designed to do, concessions and lower rents. As you can see in our projections made in our revision, the projection made for apartment revenue is lower than what was achieved in 19 and 20. In fact, is just barely 1% over what was achieved in 2018. So highly achievable, very moderate projection made. Most importantly, though, is as we've said consistently, is the gross potential income projections are really going to be modified by the guideline vacancy that we use. 8% vacancy is essentially something that hasn't been occurring at this property. They got close last year at 7.6, but if you're looking at, again, at the last 4 years, even the last 3 years, they've averaged right around 4.5%. So 8% is something we use on all of our mid-rise and high-rise that was applied in this case. We do look to achieve a stabilized effective gross. I think you'll see that we did that. Again, very modest projections made. It looks like a large increase from last year, but again, lower than what was achieved 18, 19, and 20, and by a good bit. So again, nothing has changed to this property to indicate that this would not be achievable again. 3 years out of 4, it's done this effective gross. When we looked at operating expenses, of course, we didn't yet have 2021's numbers. I would point out that they did increase by a good bit, almost 14%, and across the board. Everything was essentially up by almost 10% or more. Again, we looked to smooth that out. I did speak with Mr. Warren in regard to some of the expenses that seemed out of whack, but there's nothing that caused us to call for reconstruction or remove any of these that we would deem inappropriate. They just all increased. Some we do attribute to this increase in occupancy, namely about $100,000 in leasing commissions. This property is fairly aggressive as far as rewarding their leasing team, if you will, to keep that occupancy up. So again, those things tend to work hand in hand. Regardless, with the increase in operating expenses in 2021, we did note that, but obviously we did note that the operating expenses decreased by almost 2% in 2020. So as we've done again all year, as we do with the income, we stabilized the operating expenses and in fact increased them by quite a bit, almost 50,000 from our projection made in January 1. Again, just shy of 40% of operating expenditures, very much in line with the last 2 years, very much in line with the last 3 years, and again, even higher than the last 4 years. As stabilized nature goes, these changes we made for the effective gross and operating expenditures indicated a stabilized net operating income that was projected by the board, county in column F. We do believe that, again, this is indicative of the performance of the property, especially when you consider years 18, 19, and 20. As indicated by Mr. Warren, this is actually a decrease from last year's value. As indicated by the county, we're projecting a negative 5% change year over year, much more in line with what we believe was a 1-year downturn as opposed to the appellant's request of near negative 25%. So we believe that's too drastic. The revision made by the county, we believe, is accurate. We ask the county board to confirm our revision of $47,759,600. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions from board members? Mr. Lawson.
Yeah, this is for Blake. Blake, the expenses that, you know, they were mentioned, and they went from like 36, 37 to 45 under operating year 2021. Why such a jump?
Well, I think why you're seeing the jump in the actual operating expense ratio is because obviously income was so down. When you look at the actual figure, 1.9 million, it's not too much out of line of what had been reported in previous years when there was more of a stabilized income. In 2019, there was total operating expenses of 1.8 million. Now that dropped a little bit in 2020. But again, what we saw was an increase in expenses, materials, contracting costs for third-party vendors. And that's why you're seeing those increases really across the board for all the properties that we've brought to the board this year. So yeah, I think that operating expense ratio, that 45%, is obviously affected by the effective gross income that was reported in 2021.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, Mr. Chicas, if you take a minute to wrap up.
Yes, ma'am. Again, just ask the board to focus as we've asked all year. Do look at the 4 years. Again, obviously 2021 showed a drop, but we'd argue that years 18 through 20 were very consistent at all levels, gross potential, effective gross, and operating expenses, which led to a stabilized net operating income. We've recognized the downturn in 2021, but again, ask the board to recognize the stabilized years 18 through 20 and confirm the revision of $47,759,600. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Warren, if you take a minute to wrap up.
Yeah, and just to quickly wrap up, we would hope that the board consider the county's revision and test column, which does not seem to give consideration to the downturn experienced in 2021. What you see is the 2022 gross potential income much higher than the property was ever able to achieve in 18 and 19 prior to COVID, and in 2020. And then in their revision, basically in line with those prior 3 years, and not much consideration to the downturn in 2021. Again, we ask the board to consider that rents, although concessions may burn off. Again, this is a very much a concession-driven market, that those rents aren't just going to jump back up to back up 30-40% to the stabilized rent that they were able to achieve in prior years to COVID. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Okay, it's just among the board members. Mr. Yates.
Well, when I looked at it, I think the 8% in vacancies offsetting some of the concessions, and I do understand the issue of concessions, but I also looked at the expenses, and I think like the prior cases, couple we've had, 2020, they got a little more conservative, and the expenses dropped. If you take it back to 2019, it's more in line, and you've got a 10% difference between 21 and 20 in the expenses. It's line by line almost. So I'm thinking the above the line or EGI, I'm fine, and expenses maybe a little adjustment, but I think they just were spending money that they held back on previously.
Which we've heard many times.
Yeah. Anyway, that's where I came out.
Okay, other folks? Mr. Penaranda?
Yeah, I have no problem with the reconstructed figures. I mean, this is a building that is almost fully occupied. The rates that Mr. Chicas used to reconstruct are lower than the starting rates that Park Adams is asking right now. And I don't see any concessions that they're offering at this point, so I'm okay with it.
Okay, anyone else? Mr. Lawson?
Yeah, what I did in this case, as many, is I looked at, the assumption of increase in rental income the county made, and I tinkered around with it quite a bit and decided that that was a fair assumption. And then I looked at the expenses, and I think if we're going to make an adjustment, I think that Chris might have estimated the increase in expenses a little low. And I would be willing to make a slight adjustment in the expenses, upping them a little bit, if anyone else agrees.
Why? Based on what?
Well, based on this, Ken, it's gone, go back to like.
2019 is a regular year.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, it's 1845 versus 1827. And we know everything's gone up due to inflation. And I think you're probably around, this is Barnes guessing, but I was thinking around 1,900,000. But that's my thinking. I don't know if others agree.
Mhm.
I would buy it. I think 2020 is an abnormal year. 21 kind of trying to get back on expenses, and they probably overshot it because they were going in and putting, who knows, Purell dispensers everywhere and hands-free faucets and things like that. So the last real year was 2019, and to say that 22 is going to be less than 2019, what do you know that costs less in 2022 than
Right.
it did in 2019?
It's an old building.
Anything, English gilts maybe. So I would say if you took that up 10% or more just to deal with inflation.
That's what I look
All
at.
right, can somebody put a number together then?
That's exactly the number.
Really? 10%? Yeah, I just
I'm
thought
okay.
19.
I'm okay with the expenses the way they are.
Me too.
If you look at 2019, look at the EGI. EGI is higher than what the county is using for the.
I was okay with I'm okay with the expenses, but I do agree that costs are across every unit, every building, they're going up.
Right.
And I think that's what we're gonna start seeing next year. We can increase it this year, but I'm okay taking it back. It's higher than 2019.
My thing is, I think, Chris could have used higher rates to start with, and the vacancy that he's using, I think, more than compensates them.
I think it compensates for his concession and interest.
To start with, you
Price.
start at the top, and the rates that he's using are much lower than the asking rates that they have.
Yeah, we can't just look at one data point, operating expenses, go look at the entirety of it all. And, we see a lot of times, well, maybe this is high, but that's low, and we do that all the time. And I'm exactly where Jose is for the exact same reasons.
And I'm always in favor of increasing expenses here. It really doesn't really fit in there.
And it turns out that the 8% vacancy guideline is almost exactly the same as this really odd 2021 vacancy.
I use it.
Which means it's really generous.
It's probably 5%.
If we're allowed to
It's close
project
to
that.
offset.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's usually what we see.
Yeah.
I have a problem with concession issue in general, but the vacancy, if it's up at 8%, it's usually offsetting.
Okay, let me ask this question then. So we have as far as increase in expenses, we've got a no from Jose and Ken. So Mark, where are you? Because if you're not going to go into it, there's no sense them even, running the numbers because it's going to split and revert back to the original, not the revised.
45,751.
And what was
I'm
your?
sorry?
What I did, 45,751, and what I did was I took the 2021 expenses from their I&E, which is effectively 5.3% above the 2019 expenses.
So you went over. So you went. It's almost it's 100,000 more
Yeah,
than 19.
118,000, something like that, 117,000. But that's a 5% increase off the 2019 year, which I think
So
is.
you did a 5% increase off the test column?
Oh, no, sorry. I used the test column, correct, and then I took the 2021 actual expenses.
And he's saying that it's 5% more than 2019. It's just a progressive increase.
I see. Okay.
In the building that is almost fully occupied, and you're having a reduction of almost $5 million from last year. I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it's fine, yeah. I mean, your discussion on operating expenses is completely reasonable. But we've got to put it in the context of everything else.
Yeah, I mean, everything else I was looking at was the same units that went vacant in 2020 and were released in 2021 were released at rates 20% lower.
Not from what they're asking rates that they have.
I don't know what the asking rates are. I just know what's on the rent roll. So
1 bedrooms are going for almost 2,300, and he's using 2,150. I mean, 2 bedrooms. 1 bedrooms are about 1,860. He's using 1,750.
that's today's asking rate?
Yeah.
Yeah, but today is October of 2022.
But that's what
I'm
I'm saying.
going off of the rent roll from January of 2022.
Right.
So
what was your final number, Mr.
final
Hoffman?
number was, 45,751.
I kind of seeing that the value of the building is not going down now. Concession expenses, whichever. The rates, I don't see it's dropping.
That much, I mean.
Not
Yeah,
yet.
I'm struggling with that as well.
Yeah, especially relative to other buildings like this that are stable and established, and they got whacked last year, no question. The department said, as they often do appropriately, that put look at 4 years, more weight in the most recent year. That's precisely what they did and came out with 5.5% decrease, which is right in the zone of similar buildings experiences and valuation for 2021.
Mhm.
I just don't see anything unusual about this,
I think
one way or the other.
rents are going up from what the county's projecting. I think the concessions offsetting in the vacancy. And as far as expenses, I think that's something that we're going to see next year. Is it across the board 10% higher for everybody? But I don't know that we do it here. I don't think the building's value is going down at this point.
Okay, so there are not enough votes to do a decrease, but I don't want it to revert back to the original. So would somebody like to make a motion for the revised? Mr. Metzgen.
I move that we accept the department's revised valuation of $47,759,600.
Okay, and do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Penaranda. Motion and a second, all in favor?
So I think it should go down.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so it is 4-2, and that's without Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Lawson.
I counted votes in favor before I voted.
Oh, yeah, no, I appreciate that. I was watching that.
Legislator.
So the assessment is reduced to the county's revised number of $47,759,600. That completes the agenda for today.
Are we here
Thank you,
tomorrow?
board members. Thank you, Blake.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You are.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other business?
I'll get a walk in.
No? Okay, then we will stand adjourned at 9:54 and reconvene next Tuesday morning, October 25th at 9 a.m. in person. And Derek, do you have anything? No update? I think we're looking good schedule-wise. Rosa is on top of things.
Yeah, 3
Yeah,
days.
she is.
Next week is
Thanks.
3 days. They're not full days,
Uh-huh.
but hopefully that finishes the schedule. We have a site plan issue that we're trying to deal with today that we can hopefully get on there, but I'll keep you posted on that today.
And then do I dare ask FDIC, is that coming?
Yeah, that's on the schedule.
Oh, it is on the schedule for next week? Okay, all right. I wondered if that was gonna appear this year. Okay, all right. Well, yes, Mr. Hoffman.
Just a heads up, I have something on the 25th, and if I could be virtual, I could probably maybe miss one case and then be able to catch the rest of them.
Yeah, that's, because everybody else will be there on the 25th, correct?
All right, then I will be virtual on the 25th, and I may be 15 minutes later, so.
Rose, are we still recording? We don't need to be, do we? Should we stop recording, Mary?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, this is all business.
Nice.
But go ahead, Rosie, you can turn the recording off.